Hi everybody, my name is Renee Mann. I'm the Executive Director of Services at the Refugee Council, and it's my pleasure to be moderating today's panel. And this one is on the topic of the importance of providing the foundations for successful and sustainable integration. And we're going to be really focusing in on the role of education, skills and training in enabling that integration. So before I welcome our brilliant panel, I thought it'd be useful just to kind of set the scene for what we want to focus on today. So we're going to be focusing on how in education and the vital role of integration in enabling people who've experienced forced migration to rebuild their lives in the UK. And this afternoon we want to focus on what those key foundations are that need to be in place to enable people to achieve their aspirations, their goals for themselves in rebuilding their lives here, as we heard very powerfully in the last panel. And as we know, education is a cornerstone for personal and societal development, offering refugees a sense of normalcy, stability amidst change, and equips us all with critical thinking and problem-solving skills, fosters resilience and adaptability. And that vocational training, skill development, and crucially, economically inclusion is fundamental to people being able to rebuild their lives via accessing the workforce and becoming financially independent. So it's really important for us to focus on, this focus on education is really important for our personal growth, our self-sufficiency, and also benefits our communities by filling key skill gaps and promoting diversity and social cohesion. So we want to really focus in on all of those benefits for us all, but critically the key barriers to those pathways for refugees. So I want to focus now on introducing our brilliant panel. Who are first to my left, Mohib Ullah, who is the Director of Strategy at Refugee Aid. And this is a charity that enables people who've gained refugee status in the UK to access employment with the support of their access loans and enable them to resume their professions in the UK. And they also provide access to English language tuition in person and online, enable young people to access further education amongst many other things. We'll hear more about that in a moment. Holly Simmons is an award-winning female founder dedicated to creating a fairer future for work for refugees and migrants. And Holly's startup, Nia, uses AI and smart technologies to help unconnected people pursue their dream career. And their career management platform connects users to relevant mentors, training, job opportunities, and levelling the playing field for refugees around the world. And finally, Humair Navki, or Hugh, is the Chief Revenue Officer at Chatterbox, a company that uses AI and human expertise to deliver personalised and immersive language learning experiences. He oversees business growth and has over a decade of experience driving growth for startups and established enterprises in the education technology market, and previously led Rosetta Stone in Europe. Has extensive expertise of working with UK government and the European Union to shape language learning policy, and is passionate about democratising access to premium language learning. Please welcome our fantastic panel. So I want to start by asking Mohib and then all of the panel, what do you see as the key barriers to inclusive, good quality education for refugees in the UK, and the role of your organisation in starting to focus on addressing those key barriers?
Thank you, and hi everyone. For us, the important is more on the language side, which I'm sure everybody agrees that it's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to accessing higher education, employment, or overall when it comes down to integration. When we look what is out there that supports individuals with asylum-seeking status or refugees, there's not academic English or good advanced English out there to help them access higher education. The provision that's out there is ESOL, which is English for speaker of other languages, and it can help individuals to learn from really basic level up to intermediate level, but it really does not equip them with more advanced or academic English in order to prepare them for higher education. So our aim is to bridge that gap where we can come in and provide that advanced English. And the way we do it is we partner with English language schools. So those English language schools are accredited by British Council. And we also work with universities as well. So we're working with about 150 institutions across the country, and these institutions provide us spaces in their language classes where we put our refugee students to study in a class environment that's more inclusive, where they have students from all around the world. So it's also a start of their integration journey from the very beginning when they join our program, where they have that experience to communicate, engage with people from all parts of the world. So it's not just that it's only exclusive class for refugees where they are sitting next to another refugee, but it's with a diverse classroom that is representation from all around the world. That's our main focus, to help them prepare for academic English. But they also get a caseworker assigned to them at Refugee, which the main job of the caseworker is to ensure that the student is getting a very holistic support. So we will support them by looking at what their previous qualification is and establishing what their pathway will be in order to access education here in the UK. So majority of the students will be aiming to go to university. The caseworker will help them with personal statements, how to use UCAS system, apply to universities, and it will be all the way until they have passed their language exams. The main challenge for students who wants to go into higher education is that often their offers are conditional. So if you have to pass one of the language exams in order to start university. And those language exams are difficult. As I said earlier, there's no provision out there. So we will ensure that we prepare them well and provide them all the support in order to enable them to start university life here in the UK. That's one group of people that we work with, but then if we talk about professionals like doctors, nurses, engineers, often they are required more advanced in professional English as well. And again, it's the same issue where they don't have that advanced level of English provision available to them in this country widely. The provision that's provided by the government, as I said earlier, is ESOL. It's very limited. It can help you bring your level up to intermediate level, but after intermediate level, there's not much out there. So again, those professions that are talked about, like let's say doctor, in order to register with General Medical Council, they need to demonstrate a proficient level of English. The good thing that has happened is that now there are many more exams than just one specific exam that enables the students either to pass the IELTS exam, the language study exam, or the Duolingo exams. And what we have seen is that universities have started accepting their own assessment, internal assessment exams as well. So they're considering those as well. So there's more choice for students now. Similarly, if we talk about healthcare professionals, a doctor, let's say, previously they were required to do the IELTS exam, which again, it's a very generic exam. You have the general exam as well as the academic exam, but it's still not fit for purpose. But the good news is that they now have the choice of sitting the OET exam, which is the Occupational English Test exam. It's more relevant to them. It's designed to help medical professionals. The terminologies, the scenario, the vocabulary are very much relevant to them. So we have seen a good passing rate for doctors after the OET exam was approved by GMC in 2018. Again, the language is, of course, the main program, but that's not the end, because we know that the struggle is beyond language. On a day-to-day basis, if we're working with clients, there are other issues that come up that we see very regularly, whether that's housing issues, mental health issues, childcare issues. The list is long. So the caseworker will ensure that we are facilitating the clients in order to signpost them to the right support. And whatever we can do, we will support them as well. But for us, the main priority is to ensure that they attend their classes regularly, where we will support them financially as well to make sure they attend class by paying their transportation cost. When they're exam ready, we'll pay for their exams as well. And we will liaise with the universities as well to ensure that they get to the university. So that's the language program. But then we have the employment program, which has many strands. And one of the strands is that we provide requalification advice as well. So people, if we talk about engineers, architects, they have sort of complex pathways as well. So we work very closely with them to advise them what will be their best route in order to go back to their profession in this country. And then, of course, we have the loan program as well, which for some professionals, the requalification pathways are expensive as well. So the interest-free loan program will help them to ease their financial stress. If I just give you one last example, if we talk about pharmacists, once they have passed the language exam, because they are required to do the language exam as well, they will have to study OSPAP course for a year. And now that course costs about £11,000. But they're not allowed to get that financial support from student finance or from anywhere else. So the loan, interest-free loan program will help them to ensure that after the language they have completed their whole qualification pathway in order to register with the Pharmaceutical Council.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mohib. Holly, if I can turn to you, if you'd like to tell us about, from your perspective and your work with NEA, about what the key barriers that you see that refugees are facing on their education pathways and some of the work that you're doing to overcome them.
Yeah, of course. So I think from NIA's perspective, we're looking at it through a slightly different lens. As an organisation, we're focused on connecting refugees and migrants to careers in tech and data. So really helping people to build out their networks, to access training opportunities, and ultimately to find employment. And we always approach training and skills as kind of a stepping stone to achieving economic empowerment. When I think about the biggest barriers that individuals are facing, I think there's two that really stand out for me. And the first one is awareness of what training is even needed. There's an awful lot of people who we're working with who perhaps aren't even aware of which area should I upskill in? You know, what jobs are even out there? What are the trends in employment that suggest that I should be focusing on this area rather than another? So there's a really big education piece in actually making people aware of what they can achieve and actually instilling that confidence in them and making them aware of what the different job opportunities are that are out there and that they can work towards. And don't get me wrong, for some people that journey is longer than for others. There are some people that need an awful lot of upskilling in order to get to that dream sort of career, but there are a lot of people who are actually an awful lot closer than they realise. So awareness is definitely the kind of starting point. And then I think you move into connectivity. So actually connecting refugees to the training opportunities that are out there. And I'm talking about the hard skill and soft skill training opportunities that will really open the doors into employment directly. I mean, I've seen there's so many incredible organisations in this room, charities who are delivering free training programs, you know, coding schools, boot camps, incredible programs that are directly upskilling refugees with the core skill sets that will enable them to meet the requirements of job descriptions and help as companies start to approach kind of skills-based hiring that little bit more. And there's also a lot of big companies who also offer free training opportunities. So, you know, at NIA, we're not a service provider ourselves. So instead, we're a marketplace. We focus on partnering and onboarding charities, training providers, employers, anyone who can provide opportunities that will help refugees and migrants and other kind of low-income people in pursuing that dream career. And that means that we also work with the likes of Microsoft, Salesforce, AWS, IBM, all of these organizations who are offering free digital skills training programs to people around the world. And in providing that access, we're giving refugees a chance to upskill. But again, it's that connectivity. So how can we make sure that refugees are being matched to and connected to the right training at the right time based on their location, their aspirations, their background, and ultimately, you know, where do they want to be in the future? Because, yeah, it's tying that piece together.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Holly. And Hugh, if we can turn to you and talk about Chatterbox.
Can you hear me? Yes? So I was just sitting here, actually. First of all, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Chatterbox, which is a scary title. That isn't my only interest. Of course, you know, Chatterbox is established about 10 years ago by a much more qualified person than me in terms of setting up a startup as a refugee when she was relatively young. She's actually turned up today, which is really annoying because she should have been sitting here, I think. That said, we're 10 years down that journey as a social enterprise, a profit for good organization. And I'm sitting here thinking, that title there, I've personally seen that in the oil and gas industry, in Mozambique. Now, how would a CRO of a startup like us know about that? Well, my background is I've sat on boards at a couple of universities in the UK around education and skills, particularly for wider participation programs, which is about inclusive offers for disadvantaged people across the UK. So my obvious question to me is, how many people in this audience are from the FEHE world? Can I ask? Maybe 5, 6 at best, maybe. So in this context, there are probably 3 stakeholders that are relevant to capacity building, not just for marginalized communities or displaced people or refugees, but actually probably the whole of the UK has this issue right now, as well as other countries in the world. So you've got the mainstream sector, which is your FEHE world, and provisions through local authorities and through initiatives run by NGOs and charities. You then have provisions like Holly's just referred to, where potentially there is a lot of large and small organizations offering up their skill provision through tech to make it accessible to anybody. Am I right? Therefore, the challenge there is signposting and education and amplifying your message to probably a lot of the audience even sitting here who didn't even know that, right? Then there's the third sector, which is a lot of the organizations here who are aspiring to become entrepreneurs and deliver and support training and development, partly driven by their own personal backgrounds. And by the way, I'm also from a refugee background, but from the 60s, when I was about 3 years old. In those days, this concept and empowerment didn't exist. As I grew up, I didn't see it. I've only got to realize that when I've got grey hairs and how important these things are now. So there are 3 groups, and one is very undervalued or underrepresented here, I think. So if there's a message to the Conduit and the organizers, this is my first exposure, but I would highly recommend, if we're going to cover a subject like this, let's have the stakeholders that provide the provision in this country also at these events more, and I can help if I can. I'm happy to do so. So in my view, there is already provision here from organizations like Holly's and others. The challenge from somebody who's a refugee, in my opinion, by the way, who already has status to be here, is actually policy and provision. Policy doesn't allow, and it was mentioned earlier by the lady who was sitting here actually, who went to university, but the Home Office actually officially didn't allow that. So there's a disconnect between what the educational sector wants to do and what the policymakers don't allow you to do. So that's one area of capacity building challenge in this context. The other one is signposting for already existing. Numerous initiatives run already, both traditional and technology driven. And in addition to that, the large corporate organizations like, I'm going to mention a few just because they come to mind, Coursera, Udemy and others, who do offer free skill professional development training courses now online. So it's actually about dissemination more than it is probably, in my view, at least at a baseline position or provision as such. Provision's there. It's about navigating it, in my opinion. So I think that's, I would suggest, I'm a pragmatist, right? I do have an emotional desire to make a difference, which is why I'm aligned to what Chatterbox is all about and why I joined 2 years ago. But it's about being pragmatic about how can you scale the translation of the narrative around displaced people and bring them into the mainstream, irregardless of the political arena we live in. So I think some of the solutions are already here. It's actually providing a mechanism of amplifying the pathways to those as access points. And as such, then providing evidence of their impact and value, taking them back into the political arena and demonstrating to them and the corporate sector that the quality of impact that can be delivered, I should say, through these different organizations is valuable and should be recognized, and then therefore transformation really can take place. So I feel that's the route people like me probably have a more value to add, which is bringing the practical scaling of these initiatives. And I faced, frontline I'm not going to name the university actually, where I've sat in panels where we've been figuring out how to take what is OFS regulated funding streams at universities and transferring that into education and skills for very specific marginalized communities, not just in the refugee space, but a whole raft of different areas. And that's regulated. How many of us know about that? How many of us sitting in this room know that that is a regulated stipulation at universities? What it needs is canvassing. Back to your point about that you have to develop the English language further. I'm fully aware of that personally, but there are actual funding streams already there, stipulated and mandatory for universities to deliver. Access, wider participation and access is the area it comes under. And a part of that just needs to be lobbied correctly to ensure that the particular cohorts that we're referring to here also get equal access. So again, it's about vocalizing and understanding the regulatory world and how the money runs in that space, and then supplementing it with the things that people like you do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hugh. Go for it.
Can I just comment on that? When it comes to the widening participation teams, it's from university to university, it differs what their provisions are internally. So for the comment I was making about academic English or IELTS for those who want to advance their English is that not necessarily every university will have those provisions in place to tie up with their widening participation support.
So it can vary hugely. We don't have that consistency provision. So one of the key points I just want to really draw out, connectivity seems to be a key issue that's being drawn out in the conversation. And I just want to ask each of you what your thoughts were about the role that technology could play enabling us to strengthen education pathways. I wanted to start really with Holly first.
Yeah, of course. So NIA is a tech platform. So obviously we're a tech business trying to literally leverage AI, large language models, to solve this problem. I think the subject of AI is a really interesting one because a lot of people assume that AI is really just exacerbating inequalities and could potentially be reducing the volume of roles out there and therefore actually making the economic climate and job market worse for refugees. But actually the way that we're leveraging AI is instead to connect people to the right opportunity at the right time. So to kind of break down, I suppose, what our platform actually looks like, we partner with charities to aggregate refugees and migrants and other users from underrepresented communities into NIA's platform. We take someone's CV to then use AI to map out someone's profile and their sort of existing skill sets. And then using that, we're able to then start matching them to the relevant networking, training and job opportunities. But I think before you kind of get to that connectivity piece, you first need the aggregation, which is super important. And I think it's also really exciting when we look around the room and realise who's here, because the mere fact that everyone here today is sat listening to this panel because it's because you're all united by this aspiration to actually provide refugee communities with more hope and with more access to opportunities. We all want to level the playing field, but we need to actually collaborate and connect with one another in order to do that. So as our marketplace exists, what we're doing first is aggregating and then using the technology to start to connect the individual user to the right piece of each puzzle and map out that pathway for them.
Brilliant. Thank you, Holly. Hugh and Mohib, your thoughts about the role of technology?
Well, I've spent 25 years working with tech, telecoms tech. What I can say is first of all, Chatterbox embedded technology 2018, established in 2016. And we've been using AI and machine learning and all the buzzwords we all talk about today. Versions of that were already used within the platform for Chatterbox. You know, from what I mean, Chatterbox for me was originally a charitable mission. It became a highly commercial organization for two reasons. First of all, you know, I feel that a lot of aspirational, particularly refugees who've set up their organizations to become social impact organizations, profit for good organizations, get taken a lot of wild juice cases by investors. There are lots of promises, big picture stuff. They turn up at these events, they get all these promises, and they walk out and they've spent a ton of money and nothing comes back to them. So through that learning experience over 10 years of Chatterbox, it became very aware, Marcel, who's the CEO, became very conscious of this journey that you end up on, like a you know, it's like a table tennis ping pong ball. You're just back and forth, back and forth. So it became a very commercial orientated organization. And when it became that and went for traditional funding, it had to follow the rules of what you need to do to become an organization that gets that type of investment, right? Now, as a consequence of the tech, we've delivered the solutions where we match, we've taken a very interesting aspect to this refugee problem, or let's say displaced, marginalized community issue. We offer language training in a traditional market, which is worth £30 billion a year, to this, and we compete at the same level as large corporates, one of which I used to run a few years ago, Rosetta Stone for this region, and we compete on the same table with them, and we offer the same quality of language training, but with a unique element of we employ refugees, displaced people across the world, and marginalized communities to become superstar language trainers themselves in their native language, and match that with very high-tech based technology to provide a blended solution. So we basically solve a business problem for an organization, and indirectly as a consequence of us delivering that solution using refugees, we are solving a business problem and indirectly creating hours and hours of work for marginalized communities. That's our business model, which we're scaling even more and became profitable last year. So soon be looking for the next raise of funding to expand this current solution and then expand to other areas. But underlying is all of the work we've done is by using technology as a complementary scaffold around a human being to be able to use their skills, their existing skills, and be able to blend that together in a very effective way to support organizations, employees to develop language skills. Conversely, that tech then allows us to branch into other areas of products, which I probably shouldn't go into today, which kind of talk to the world Holly you're referring to access the untapped skills. And there's a unique DNA for people who've gone through hard elements to their life journeys, whether you want to call it displacement, whether you want to call it violence. There is a unique element to these types of people that enrich other people's lives in a way you otherwise wouldn't get. And I don't know if you will understand where I'm coming from, but if you are the VP of a large organization like Bacardi, and you are being taught French by a French coach, and then you get to know that coach, and that coach starts to offer you a lens of experience, not just by learning the language, but the cultural context and their own journey of why this very senior person who's part of a big organization in the past, out of displacement due to no fault of their own, end up in a position where they become a language coach for something like Chatterbox to change the trajectory of their life. The learning experience for a VP of an executive company who's just come here to learn French with that person, the empowerment that person will get is unbelievable. So I don't think, again, what tech needs to do is elevate the value of somebody's abilities and be able to give that to them as an extension to demonstrating to the narrative we live in, to the uniqueness of what people with very unique experiences can deliver. So the tech, in my eyes now, is all about how do you scaffold a human being to elevate their abilities and skills to be able to access education, skills and training, and therefore employability and sustainability for them and their families.
Really compelling. Thanks so much, Hugh. How about for Refugee, Mahib?
I'll go to the original topic, which is education. And when, I'm sure you all agree, when we talk about education, we see it as more than academic achievement, is to develop critical thinking, foster empathy, ethical understanding, and building a foundation to learn lifelong lessons and skills. And that brings me to the topic of AI. Now that once you have the foundation, solid foundation that is education, challenges like AI, I'm sure we all agree that we now are in the era of AI. The world is very rapidly transformative. So it comes down to the basic foundation, strong education, and we have to address those challenges. So when it comes to asylum seekers and refugees, we talk about challenges such as lack of, tech access, technology, laptops. When we went into pandemic and our provision was only available online and by our partner schools, we realized that majority of our clients did not have access to laptops and sound internet. So we're dealing with very basic issues there, which we need to address in order to prepare them for all these modern challenges, including AI. And of course, AI is to provide solutions as well, but we need to look into it. Will AI be by the employers, by the big institutions, and how they can incorporate to answer some of those challenges?
Brilliant. So we've got some hardware and software challenges, but opportunities as well. Another point that I want to ask for your thoughts on, each of you on the panel, was how we've talked a little bit around connectivity from a technological perspective, but we've also talked about the connectivity between those people in this room and more widely in the ecosystem of people trying to address some of these education pathway challenges. And I just wondered what your thoughts, each of your thoughts were about how we could work together differently as differently the leaders of organisations, owners of technology, investors, etc., to be able to improve and strengthen these education pathways to address some of the barriers you've identified, to make better use of the opportunities of technology and other strategies perhaps as well. Hugh, would you like to start?
It's such a wide question. I was really thinking, where do I go with this? I think we have to be realistic, first of all. Most of the people in this room, I would suggest, would love to give as much time as possible to convene, get together, and collaborate. But the reality is we don't have that time, I think. So the mechanisms on how to create some work streams and mobilizers to these groups through this type of a forum is, I think, it needs some highly motivated mobilizers, probably, in my view, to start to drive some practical solutions and collaboration. I think most sectors, when they first develop, and I still think, from my perspective, it's still a developing area, needs that mobilization. And I repeat, I'd love to do that, but do I have to be pragmatic? I have to be realistic. Do we really have individually the amount of time that we would need to really do that? I don't know. So I think it comes down to just finding some highly motivated people with a bit more time, maybe, I don't know, to really become the catalyst to creating some work streams through this type of thing. So we can go from discussion to practical ideas to then prioritizing and then executing. And it doesn't matter if it's not a great execution. Let's just start the process. But this, obviously, my first experience here this year, we'd love to be as much help as we can, based just on our 10-year journey to date, and being profitable last year, and now actually being able to choose how we build our destiny and stuff like that. So it's practical, pragmatic, executional type, realistic type ambition, I think.
And some highly motivated organisers.
Yeah, I think we can all be motivated, but we need to have the practical reality of time to be able to invest in that. And a lot of people, I sense, probably think, God, I wish I had another day in the week, because we have, that early stages, I guess, in terms of building their operations. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hugh. Holly, your thoughts?
I think that probably the best place to start with these things is to really break down what value your organisation and you as an individual can provide, because we've touched on so many topics already today. You know, the need for housing, the need for mental health support, the need for language training, the need for confidence building, career coaching, hard skill training. You know, there's so many different areas and requirements that are currently unmet, but that organisations are tackling. And I think once you think really deeply about what value you can provide, then it enables you to think, okay, then what might be next? And to actually speak to your beneficiaries, speak to the people in your networks and understand where they don't feel as supported. And that feels like a really good starting point. Where don't they feel supported? And you might not be able to support them with everything. I think it's unrealistic to think that a single organisation can support a refugee with every single one of their needs, from the kind of start right through to, you know, them dream job, house, family supported, everything. So speak to the people that you're working with, understand how you're helping them, what they're still looking for, and then if there's a network here that will spin out of this event, leverage it to work out who can then help with those unmet needs. And I think slowly then we'll start to build those connections, and piece by piece, hopefully begin to create these kind of pathways that mean that those who one of us supports, actually suddenly there's a lot more of us who are able to support them as well.
Brilliant point. Deeply understand your own value first before reaching out. Mohib, your thoughts?
I think for me, education, I know that it was pivotal for me because when I decided that it was the only way to equip myself the way I want to live my life, that is independent, that is full of respect and dignified, you know, where I can exercise my liberal values. So I very much value education. That's a force that I take to work every day, where when I speak to clients, it's a sense of optimism that I want to pass on to them. It's just not the support or signposting, but it's, okay, I've been there, I know your issues, but this is where you can get, you know. So it's a sense of optimism that me and my colleagues on a day-to-day basis try to convey that and form those friendships and you know, those genuine connections where we touch more than just, you know, those superficial issues, but really understand what is going on in their lives. And I think what is good, and I'm an optimistic person, you know, despite talking about all those challenges, is that there are a number of organizations and charities now in the sector, you know, providing various sort of support, which is great. But as Holly said, there's a need for more collaborative work because, you know, it is good that clients have, refugees and asylum seekers have a choice to go to more than one place, which is fantastic. But we can get much more done in a more organized and a structured way if we all work together. So there's true potential. Every year we have about over 200 language graduates who go on to university. And they give me the sense of hope, because I know that there's so much, you know, talent that we speak to on a day-to-day basis, and I genuinely see some of those people will be doing remarkable work in this world, and particularly for this country. I'm very proud of them because they're part of my community, and I really feel very strongly about them. So yes, there's still room for us to work together to ensure that everybody is getting that support they need.
Can you say a bit more about the structured collaboration that you were just talking about there, Mohammed? Mohib, what would that look like practically? What would you like to see change?
So, as I said, like there are many organizations out there, and they're doing fantastic work. What is missing is that the tailored support for clients. So if you're talking to a doctor, you need to really tailor what they are required from the start all the way finishing their language exam, their PLAB exams, and then registering with the General Medical Council. and we can benefit from each other knowledge and experience by sharing, best practices. If we talk about students, where do they end up once we have supported them, once they've started university? How are they supported after university? Because we need to remind ourselves that they don't have those local connections. They don't have friends or families in businesses or in the HR teams to sort of, vouch for them and give them those internship, those opportunities. Last year we did a mentorship program with CARE, where we supported grads, engineers who completed our language program, went on to university, graduated from universities, and now 33% of those students have secured jobs within CARE. So it's ensuring that you're supporting them from all the way to the start to a very meaningful employment, or if their purpose is, starting their own business, then definitely those steps should be taken into account as well.
So it's thinking through the whole journey and how we come together as a team around
Exactly.
the person. Brilliant. So last question I wanted to ask you all, because it's sort of starting to come through the conversation as well. How can we better involve refugees in developing some of the solutions that you've been identifying? So I think, Holly, you were starting to talk about the value, having that deep understanding of value. But I wonder, maybe perhaps if we start with yourself again, Mahir, talking about the work that Refugee does to really involve refugees and helping to shape those client pathways, really understand the value that you're delivering, and helping them to be part of the development of those solutions and co-production.
I think personally, the work is close to my heart and what I do, and it very much aligns with my values, and that's I've chosen a very independent and dignified life, and this is what I want for everybody that comes in contact with me. So that's the main value, that's driven force for myself and for my team. Everybody deserve a respectful and a sound life. So I think thinking about those values, they shape us and they shape everybody that we come in touch with. So they are at the core of what we do.
Brilliant. Holly, how about for yourself?
Yeah, we have always, I suppose, set out to build for the refugees in our community and for our end user. And as an organisation, the way that we're structured is that, technically speaking, we sell into big corporates and organisations who want to tap into that talent pipeline. But despite the fact that that might be our business model, we're still building for the refugees that we're working with, because if we're not building for them, then we have no hope of actually providing them with, the resources and that connectivity that they really need. And then as a result, the businesses are never going to reach those individuals. So for us, even just capturing user feedback, finding the time to really listen to people's stories, because everyone's is so different. It's not a one size fits all. And we can't tackle this problem in the same way that employers are approaching like gender diversity, for example, within their business. It's so much deeper than that. So to give you an idea, we every week will sit down for a couple of hours. On one day, we have a session where any user from our platform can come along, can join, can share what they like, what they dislike, what they're still challenging with. And it, fuels us to make sure that not only are we building for them, but also it's what keeps our own team motivated as well. Exactly as you were saying, Naya's whole team are driven to do the work that we do every day because we have the proximity to those users and to their stories. And I think also, just more broadly speaking, you can't underestimate the power of storytelling in this space. And I think a lot of people here will have that proximity where if it's not their own story, it's the story of someone that they're incredibly close to, and use that to turn the heads of people that don't have that proximity, because it's one of the only ways that we can really get other people to listen.
Brilliant. Thanks, Holly. Hugh, how about for Chatterbox?
Well, the evidence of, so there's a collective, so when we hire people, everybody has to look for technical competency for a specific role. I think we all know that. But for me, understanding in the most authentic level you can the mission and the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. So while we operate as we operate as a commercial organization, I've the CEO will tell you, Marcel, the same thing. That is really important. Why? Because we're of the belief that if you really want to build and scale a sustainable model to what we're trying to do, which is what? Which is to change the trajectory of the lives of people with a displaced background, whether that's due to refugee status, which is where we started, for which in fact Marcel got an MBE in 2021. That was the fundamental reason behind it. She's herself is a refugee, right? Came from Afghanistan. The whole idea of Chatterbox came about with the Syrian the whole thing that happened in Syria. What was that, 7-8 years ago now, right? That's when this whole desire of Marcel's to come into this crazy world, which is a highly competitive world of language training, but with the mission of I want to compete on the same table as the real big providers. So not being seen as a charitable cause, but to seen as an organization that delivers a quality need that corporate and enterprise and NGOs and others want every day. It's an established sector. And therefore, we want people to use Chatterbox for the quality of what it delivers. The beauty of that approach for us is that on one level, we're solving a business problem. Underlying that, the social impact then adds an incredibly satisfying value for an organization that actually didn't invest in us because of that core impact. Is actually for the business need. So we become sustainable as an organization as a consequence. Why is that important for us from a hiring perspective? Every member of our organization has a story to tell. Going back to you, I'm all about storytelling, by the way. So I completely get it. And I think a lot of people, even from a pedagogical perspective, from education, will say storytelling is a great way of imparting knowledge. I could just think of one person right now who we hired literally a year and a half ago. Now, the irony is, I worked with her. She worked with me 12 years ago at Rosetta Stone. She was single, right? She's from Venezuela, got robbed, had violence, had to deal with violence at a young age. Her parents said, you've got to leave the country. She left Venezuela. In long story short, she ended up in the UK. Did an MBA. Ended up working for Rosetta Stone. I didn't know her background. I just knew that she was able to deliver a fundamental role in a corporate organization. We were then hiring for a similar role at Chatterbox about a year ago. And just on the day we were just putting the job spec out in the market, I saw her LinkedIn post saying she's looking for work. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. When I spoke to Vanessa, I hope she doesn't mind I've just mentioned her name. I hope she's not listening. I then find out, that's when I've got to find out. When I said, listen, I've left that kind of traditional world that we were in. I've come back to something I really care about. This is what we're building. Here's the reason why. And she started to cry online, right? She's now in France. She's married. She's got a child. And then she told me her true story. Now, I didn't know about her story in my corporate life because it would never come up, right? So her interest in Chatterbox isn't because she was just looking for a job. She's a mother with a child, now speaks 3-4 languages, has an MBA. She's joined Chatterbox because of our mission and our social impact. And she sees that every day with all of our clients, because all our clients, remember, they've taken on Chatterbox as a replacement or in comparison to another provider in the traditional world that we have to compete in. And when she speaks to our clients and she hears about how much they care about the impact of what Chatterbox is trying to do in the marketplace, adds an additional layer of relationship with our clients who are there buying this stuff because there's a business need, remember, not because, oh, you're a social enterprise, we want to help you. I come from a world when D&I, ESG didn't exist. Social impact wasn't a phrase. And all organizations want to demonstrate their social impact now, right? And they've got it on their websites. We're able to provide a very direct binary evidence of the fact they're delivering social impact. But for us, the recruitment process is very much driven by people who truly want to make a difference. And that's what we want to portray to everybody we speak to as what uniquely differentiates us from the mainstream market that we operate in. So I don't think anybody in this room would not have the same aspiration, because we're preaching the converted a little bit, I think. It's those who haven't touched this sensitivity that we're referring to. That's part of everybody's mission to change, right?
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Hugh.